What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 608. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources. And joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado is Jules around, Luis? Is Jules helping?
Oh, yeah. Jules is here.
Okay, she's down there. It's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, I'm covering
life?
the Challenger Gauntlet. Yeah, I was trying to think of it. There's so many different ones. With you, actually, we're going to be in the booth together, the virtual booth, as it were, for the first time. And I honestly don't know how long. There's just so few events these days. And because I was in the Rivals League, I played in most of them. That this is the first time I've done coverage of anything other than like a CFB Showdown for, again, I don't know how long.
Yeah, it's been years, and I'm really excited for it. I love being in the booth with you. We always have a really good time, and I feel like we hit a really high level with it. So that should be super fun to see who's successful in that. We're going to be doing that this weekend. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you're listening, as the podcast comes out. We've got a fun show lined up today. We're going to do two things.
More fun for one of us than the other. More fun for
one than the other. We had our LR versus LOL Showdown, the AFR version of that, in the last few days, and it did not go very well for me. And we're going to examine why. We're going to take a look at my draft together, and Luis is going to give me kind of a coaching session, if you will, as he's going to walk me through maybe some decision points, that I did well, and maybe some that I didn't do as well. And we're gonna grind through it. This is what it takes to keep on the quest for getting better, and we're going to do it in front of all of you. So yay.
Well, let's not bury the lead either. We defeated the Lords of Limited.
Good point.
And again, spoilers for the upcoming draft, but I went 3-0, BK went 2-1, and we're going to see how Marshall maybe could have picked up a win. We'll take a look at the draft here, but that does bring our lead back. So now we're up 3-2 in these showdowns. They have become really my favorite part of the new set. You know, just getting to battle the Lords for podcast supremacy, but mostly just to have fun and play against those guys. They're always great sports. Like, I enjoy it regardless of what happens every time. And I think that they're on the same page. It's just a fun way to, if Wizards won't give us high stakes limited tournaments, we'll make our own. And these do feel like real stakes. I mean, I know that you cared when you lost, and I know
I'm
we
still
care
mad about it.
Right. When we lose, I know those guys care. And, the losing team buying the winning team dinner doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I still I'm thinking ramen for this one,
nice.
Just go spend a little LOL money on ramen. Anyway, so we're going to go over that in a very public fashion, but that should be hopefully a good learning experience for me and for you. And then also we've got a bunch of tips, tricks, combos, interactions, little 1-2 punches for AFR that you may or may not be aware of, weird rules, things that we're going to cover as well on the show. It should be a fun one. Before we get into it, let's talk about our sponsor, channelfireball.com. Of course, they're really the place to go for anything you need magic related on the internet. I mean, if you're out and about looking to build a new deck, I mean, we all know that Commander has kind of reshaped the game. Right. Our game is different now. The priorities are different. Things are different. And if you're looking to get into Commander or start building a deck, head on over to Channel Fireball. They got a great selection of singles over there that you can use to fill out all the cards that you need to get your first or 12th Commander deck together and start battling. Of course, if you want sealed product or anything like that to do drafts with your friends or to do sealed or whatever, you can head over to CFB for that as well. And while you're there, if you're interested in more high level competitive content primarily, you should check out CFB Pro. This is it's a paid content side of Channel Fireball, and you get what you pay for. It is fantastic. They have some of the best articles from some of the best players who are really in the trenches. These are people who are out there grinding, playing, and they're going to share with you what they've learned and what they know about these formats, and that can help give you a leg up over the competition. If you do end up picking up anything over at CFB, if you'd use the affiliate code LR, it helps out the show, and we do appreciate it. The show is also brought to you by you via the Patreon. So if you want to support the show directly, patreon.com/limited resources is the place to go. All the information's there, and I'll just keep that one short. Now, one thing that I keep forgetting to bring up, Luis, I meant to on the last show, that we have to mention before we get into this grueling Showdown review that we're about to do, and also before we do our Crack-a-Pack, is a little news item that came up. Draft is back, baby. Worlds is going to have draft.
Yeah, that does not excite me at all. And it's not for good reasons. It's just because I missed Worlds by literally one match at the Gauntlet. Yeah, so hearing that I got to miss out on draft is not making me excited for it. But that said, I know that's just sour grapes, and I think it is awesome for the community overall that is what is going on, and that there will be draft at Worlds. I just know, since I'm not going to be there, that I'm going to be feeling left out.
What are you talking about? Is this some type of disinformation campaign, or are you trying to
what?
You're in the MPL Gauntlet. The top 3 players from MPL Gauntlet go to Worlds. You could do that.
Technically.
I'm not saying you should just plan on it, but how about we don't plan on it not happening?
Look, I'm just trying to backstop myself against disappointment when I inevitably lose again.
Oh my God.
Marshall loves when I'm down on my chances.
A lot of courage there, Luis, really just standing up strong, just giving up before he's even there. But this is cool. For those of you who haven't followed high level Magic for the past, year and a half or so, they basically completely cut out Limited. And that was partially due to constraints with Arena when they first switched over during the pandemic from from live tournaments to going to Arena only. But now there's been a bit of time, and it's kind of okay, if you really wanted to do it, probably could have done something. I would assume that we'll have it back at some point, but I'm not guaranteeing it, but the fact that they've made the effort here to make it a thing for Worlds is a big deal, I think, and it's a step in the right direction, and I'm really happy to see it. So that'll be cool. It'll be the next set, I think, Innistrad, whatever it's called.
Midnight Hunt.
Midnight Hunt. We've been there a few times.
Also, at the end of the day, I know that even if I don't qualify for Worlds, which I admit I have a chance to, even if I don't, I'll be there watching. I mean, I do love that draft is back. So don't let my disappointments take away from that in any way.
Right. And the hope here, of course, is that was them. I mean, look, that's their highest profile event of the whole year. And they said, we're going to have Limited here. So that to me says they're planting their flag and saying, you know what? We still care about Limited. It's still a part of the competitive scene, and that gives me some hope for the future. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it's exciting. Let's crack a pack, Luis. What do you got?
Let's do it. All right. So I've got a crack a pack here. First card is Unexpected Windfall, the common that lets you discard a card to draw 2 and make 2 treasures. It's a playable. You can fill out your deck with this, especially if you have some treasure rewards or a splash, but obviously not something we're going to take early. Mm-hmm. Next up, we've got Hill Giant Herd Gorger, your boy, the 4 green 7/6 and gains 3. Really good high end for green. Been impressed with this card.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you to. Well, I gave you some space to sing the praises.
I probably wouldn't take it here, but it's better. Certainly better than it looked before. It's really the 3 life is more relevant than we thought, and the stats are huge. It's just bigger than anything else at common.
We've got you come to a river, bounce, or give a creature +1/+1 unblockable. Not really a playable from my experience.
No, it should have been. It should have been. That's a nice versatile card that gives you a way to be defensive and one that gives you a way to get in, and especially in the blue-black pair, for example, getting in is important, and it just isn't. It's just not enough.
Well, it's a combination of blue being bad, the Cyber Tour deck being bad, which are related. Also, this more than some of the kind of split cards. Both of these effects are better if you're aggressive. Bounce is better when you're aggressive, and unblockable is clearly better. You don't actually want both. Flexibility doesn't mean as much when both modes are good in the same kind of situation. So I do think that this suffered as a result. We've got Deadly Dispute, 1 black, sack an artifact or creature to draw 2 cards and make a treasure token, and pretty strong card. Definitely one of the better black combos. We kind of didn't mention it last week, though I'm not sure exactly where it is in my top 5. Either way, I would take Hill Giant Herd Gorger over Deadly Dispute, though I think it's actually close.
Yeah, I like Dispute. It doesn't quite make my top 5. Black has a lot of really good commons. So
yeah. Scaled Herbalist, unplayable, 1/3 that taps to put lands into play. Ranger's Bow, the +2/+1 reach equipment for 3 equip, which is not where you want to be either. +2 Mace, the 2 mana +2/+2 equip 3 equipment, a playable in the equipment deck, but not really something you're looking for outside of it. Zombie Ogre, 5 mana 3/5 venture if something died at the end of your turn. A pretty good card. I tend to play this.
It's actually better than I thought. Yeah.
70% of the time in my black decks, 80%. But I would take Deadly Dispute over it if those are the head to head. And I still think I'm on Herd Gorger over both of those.
Yeah, same. I'm surprised that we're this far through the pack and still on Gorgeous George, but you do what you got to do.
Oh yeah. Improvised Weaponry, the 2 and a red, deal 2 sorcery speed and make a treasure. I would take Weaponry here over all these cards. It's just a solid early play. You get punished pretty hard if they don't play a 2 toughness creature in the first couple turns, but hopefully you can avoid that. First uncommon is a foil, so there's actually going to be 4 uncommons. You happen on a Glade, 2 and a green, instant, choose one, search for 2 basic lands and put them in your hand, or return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. Where do you stand on this one?
Well, I liked it a little earlier in the format before people dialed in on the aggro decks quite as much, and now it feels like it's a step too slow. This is a powerful effect. It hits your land drops, and it gets back some creature late in the game. It's just 3 mana is so slow. It feels like there's too many games where you can't take that amount of time to do it. So I'm down on the card now.
I do like the card still. I think you want this effect in your deck, especially since it is flexible where when you need lands early and you need to fix your like splash color, it works. And then late game, it can get back like a Herd Gorger. But I agree, I wouldn't take it over Weaponry. And I don't even think you're supposed to take it over Hill Giant Herd Gorger, as unfortunate as that is. Lightfoot Rogue. So that's the 1 and a black 2/1. And then when it attacks, you roll a d20, either gains Death Touch or +1/+0 and Death Touch. Or if you roll a 20, +3/+0, First Strike and Death Touch.
Not actually a huge fan of this card. I find that, I'd almost rather just have a 2/2 in many scenarios. People play a lot of 1 mana creatures in the format. There's a real emphasis on getting on the board early and often. And people, what is it called? Shambling Ghast or whatever. Like people play that all the time, and it kind of eats this thing's lunch. But even sometimes they just play like the stupid 1/1 Haste Goblin, and they're just like, go, and they just end up trading with your 2/1. I always put this in my deck when I get it, but I never take it early like this.
Yeah, I've kind of had similar experiences where I do like it because I like all 2 drops in this format. That's just what this format's about. But the kind of abundance of goblin tokens, thanks to Venture especially, means that it gets, get bad trades a little too often. And because it only has Death Touch on attacks, it's not actually that good defensively. So not taking that here. What about Goblin Morningstar? I do really like this one. This is the 1 in a red equipment that gives the creature +1/+0 and trample for an equip of 2. And you roll a d20 when it enters the battlefield. And on 1 through 9, you make a 1/1 goblin. And on 10 through 20, you attach the Morningstar to that 1/1 goblin.
I love this card. This would be my pick for sure. The emphasis on 2 drops that you mentioned before is still here. And this is a really good one. Like I'm a big fan of this card. I would definitely take it over the other cards in the pack here.
Yeah, I'm on Goblin Morningstar here as well. Another good uncommon and Prosperous Innkeeper, 1 and a green 1/1 halfling, makes a treasure token, and then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. So very strong in the green-white life gain deck, and still pretty solid in most of the like green decks that you'll be drafting.
Yeah, I think I would guiltily take this card. It's really strong. This card it really overperforms. The life gain is totally relevant even outside of the life gain deck, and it's pretty broken in the life gain deck. There's a lot of times where people play this into like a unicorn and it triggers immediately, and you're just sitting there and you're giving your opponent a lot to handle. They have to kill all your stuff, and they have to do it now or it gets out of hand really quickly. I love that card. My gut says that the Morningstar's a better card, but I would probably take the green guy because I really like that card.
Yeah, I would take the Morningstar. I think the
upside's higher too on it, for what it's worth.
I do think the upside's higher because if you do draft green-white, it's going to be one of the best cards in your deck. It enables all of your life gain for 0 mana. But I would just take the Morningstar. Also, red is, I think, enough better than green that it's not even like you're taking much of a risk. You're taking the card that's better in more decks in a better color. So I'm on Morningstar. For a rare, we've got Minion of the Mighty, 1 mana 0/1 menace that has Pack Tactics, put a dragon into play from your hand. So haven't really seen a good use for this one. So yeah, it looks like Goblin Morningstar for me.
Yeah. I think I would take the Innkeeper. I think the correct pick is the Morningstar.
All right. So let's get on to our main topic. Though we did want to talk about some combos and stuff later, depending on the time we've got left. But let's review your draft, because this was a pretty interesting one. Like I mentioned to Marshall before the show, I was curious how his deck ended up the way it was, so I watched his draft. You can watch. The VOD is going to be linked in the show notes. In fact, one of the cool things about the LR versus LOL showdowns is everyone streams. Obviously, if something comes up for someone, they might not be able to. But so far, I think everyone has streamed their drafts. And so you can look back at this 3-on-3 team draft and see everyone's perspective and how things going, where you're like, wow, how did someone get a 5th pick Dragonsfire? Well, you can actually see it travel around the table if that's what you're so inclined.
Yeah. Should I give the quick hitters on what what actually went down, or?
No, we should just go through the draft and kind of talk about it afterwards, I think would be good.
Okay.
And just again, it's 3-on-3 team drafts, which do make some things different, and it's alternating. So in this draft, Marshall was passing to Cortical's Alex Nikolic and getting passed to by Lord Tupperware, Ethan. So you're always surrounded by 2 enemy members, which means whenever you pass a pack, the first person who's going to see it is not on your team. And unlike normal draft, that makes things zero sum, where it is better to hate draft a card than take a card for your deck if the card you're passing is sufficiently good enough and will go into the enemy team's deck. So a little different priorities in that sense. It does reward a little more taking the best card out of the pack than a normal draft, but that also, there's a lot of things going on. For the most part, though, I think people will be able to follow along as if it were kind of a draft that they were doing. And we're not going to go through like every single pick. Just I want to touch on the high points, because it was a tough draft to navigate. You don't usually get such a good opportunity. I will say for my draft, it was not a tough draft. If you wanted to watch the VOD, I started black-red, took a couple blue cards at the end of pack 1 because they were just going around, opened Meteor Swarm, and then took a Grim Bounty or whatever, and never took a non-black or red card unless I wanted to randomly hate something. Not a hard draft to navigate. I felt like it was pretty on rails, and I opened good rares and was in the right seat for red-black. So I can't claim as much credit as I would like. But you, on the other hand, opened a Reaper's Talisman here, and the second best card in the pack was probably Underdark Basilisk. There's a Vorpal Sword too, though I haven't really been impressed with that card. I don't think it's particularly good. So
I like Vorpal Sword more than that, but I agree. It's really kind of Talisman, and then you're kind of looking around this pack.
Yeah, so you're passing an Intrepid Outlander, what have you. So not too exciting. Your second pack, I was so ready for you to take Owlbear, because the pack has, of note, Burning Hands, Owlbear, and Priest of Ancient Lore as like the 3 best cards.
Should we say that I took the Talisman though?
Yes, you took Reaper's Talisman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Your pick 1 was Reaper's Talisman in a slam dunk like that. Just the best card in the pack by a lot. So second pick, do you want Burning Hands? Do you want Priest? Do you want Owlbear? You took Burning Hands again. I'm completely on board here. Like I would take Burning Hands in that spot. I was actually pleasantly surprised when watching that you didn't take the Owlbear there, because I know you wanted to.
I did, but the 5-drop, 5-drop versus 2-drop removal in this format, it's kind of like you do what you got to do.
So third pick, you snap off Vorpal Sword over Horde Robber and Plundering Barbarian, with some kind of mediocre blue and white cards in the pack. I would take Plundering Barbarian there. I think that it's just a better card. I've just not been that impressed with a Vorpal Sword. But if you like Vorpal Sword more, reasonable. You're staying in the red-black lane. Of note, there's no color that has seen. It's only 3 picks in. You can't really tell what's open or what's not. And then fourth pick, the best card in the pack is Displacer Beast, with the black and red cards being Manticore and Dueling Rapier, which neither of those are cards I'm excited about taking at this spot. There's also a Celestial Unicorn, which I think would be my pick based on having a Reaper's Talisman. The combination of Unicorn and Reaper's Talisman is really strong, but this isn't a very good pack no matter what. So you do end up taking the Celestial Unicorn, which I like. So right now you've got 2 black cards, 1 red card, 1 white card, and an awkward pack here with Targnar, the red-green uncommon demon, Arborea Pegasus, and Hired Hexblade as maybe the 3 best cards. Targnar certainly the best card, but you're not really in a position to take it. Here's, I think, the first time we diverge. Well, I guess we diverged on the Vorpal Sword, but I would take the Arborea Pegasus just because I think it's stronger. You took the Hired Hexblade. So now you're still, now you're more committed to black. You've got 3 black cards, 1 red card, 1 white card.
Right.
And then you get past a Tiger Tribe Hunter and a Plundering Barbarian as 2 good red cards in the pack, no good black cards in the pack. And you took the Tiger Tribe Hunter, which totally behind that.
Yeah. So let me ask you about the prior pick though. So I took the Hired Hexblade and so you said that commits me more to black. Should I be trying to protect my investment, or should I be trying to stay open like I would in a non-team draft where I'm more interested in just reading the table?
So in this particular case, you haven't passed anything too exciting. Like these packs have been weak. You've just until this pick, you've taken the best card out of every pack. I would have taken Plundering Barbarian over Vorpal Sword, but from your point of view, you took the best card out of that pack, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That was what you were going for. The first time you don't do that is actually the Hired Hexblade pick, where you took Hired Hexblade over Arborea Pegasus, with Arborea Pegasus just being a stronger card.
Yes. And so my thought process was that it's a bit stronger, but if I take the Hexblade, which I think is a fine playable, then I'm more likely to get to play my Talisman and my sword.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You weren't strongly committed. It is better also. I mean, if you have 5 cards, it is much stronger to have 3 black cards, 1 red card, 1 white card than 2 black cards, 2 white cards, 1 red card. Because in the 3-1-1 scenario, it's easier for you to pivot behind the other 2 colors. In the 2-2-1 scenario, you're a lot more lost in terms of which direction you're going to go. Not like it's a dramatic difference, but it is a difference. And now you're ending up, after taking Tiger Tribe Hunter a couple picks later, which, again, definitely the right pick. It's just the best card. You now have 3 black cards, 2 red cards, and a Celestial Unicorn, which is looking pretty dubious. Like, we're not looking
lonely.
Yeah, it just looks like, we took a slight detour into Unicorn/white out of a weak pack. Again, I'm totally fine with that. And then here, so this is actually, seeing this pack, there's Ginny Windseer, Scion of Stygia, and Guild Thief, 3 pretty decent blue cards. Remember, the whole table is seeing this pack now because it's pick 7, 6-player draft. And this is where I actually 3 picks later, I think took either the Scion or the Windseer, whichever one came around. And I was just surprised. I'm like, wow, I guess no one's drafting blue. I still didn't want to draft blue. Even knowing there was no one at the table drafting blue, I still didn't really want to draft blue.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have faulted you for taking a blue card. In terms of black, red, and white, there's an Unexpected Windfall, an Eyes of the Beholder, and a Paladin's Shield, all pretty bad. I think I would just take the Windfall, but it kind of doesn't matter what you take here. I would also not. I might take the Jin Windseer. I don't know. Regardless of what you pick, it's not like going to be super important for the direction of your draft.
Okay.
And in a team draft, also, if there's like one good blue card, I could see hating it. But given how many there are, it's not really going to do much. You took Find the Path, but that just was whatever. And then now you have the option of Contact Other Plane, Jaded Sellsword, and Scion of Stygia. Again, 2 of the like decent blue commons still in the pack, alongside a Trickster's Talisman. So blue clearly is open. Still doesn't mean you should draft it. And I actually like the Jaded Sellsword pick. I just don't think we're going to end up with these blue cards in our deck here. So
right.
Then you take a Pixie Guide over nothing, and I think the rest of this pack is really just not that relevant. You, like everyone else in the draft, kind of ended up with a bunch of random blue cards in effectively empty packs. So then the start of pack 2, you open Grandmaster of Flowers and Grim Bounty. And to give you where we're at right now is we have 3 black cards and 4 red cards, but really our cards aren't that good. Plus you have that 1 Celestial Unicorn. I think, especially given it's a team draft, you should take Grandmaster of Flowers here.
Yeah, that was my thought process there as well. I think that it was a little tricky because I haven't actually had a chance to play with Grandmaster. It's like one of the few rares that I haven't gotten yet. So I'm like feeling like it's pretty strong card, but not one of those like bomb, it's not Mordekainen or whatever, where it's just like, okay, this is just really stupid. But I also didn't feel comfortable passing it and then having it just wreck you guys. And I would really feel bad if that, if my judgment was off a little bit on it. Even though, I think if I was in a non-team draft, I probably just would have taken the bounty. rather than
in a
double
non-team
white
draft.
card.
I think Grim Bounty was the pick there because you had more inroads into black and red. But this was an example of the divergence between team and non-team. I think your pick of Grandmaster of Flowers is correct. I think where we're going to see most of our differences, though, is probably this pack. I think the mid to late picks in this pack. So then the next pack, you've got Lightfoot Rogue in black, Faraday's Fireball and Valor Singer in red, a Deadly Dispute in black, and then Steadfast Paladin and Planner Ally in white. So here I would take Steadfast Paladin based on where we're at. And then basically we took Grandmaster. It's also our best card. Oh man, you took the Steadfast Paladin. Yeah, that's perfect. That is the pick. I was, again, when watching this, I wasn't sure if you were going to make that pick, but I think we had just recorded the show a few hours earlier and I think I sold you on the Paladin.
I think you did too. I think I might've said that. I can't remember, but I think I said something like Luis loves this card. Let's go for it. And
then the next pack's pretty weak with, you hear something on watch, Fate's Reversal, Plundering Barbarian. And I think one of the things we're going to see here is that we value Plundering Barbarian differently because you took Armory Veteran here. And this is, I think, the first pick, which I really, really disagree with because I think it's the third best red card in the pack. Like I would rather have Valor Singer and definitely Plundering Barbarian over it.
Okay.
Especially because the only two equipment you have are black. And I think at this point you want to be red-white. I think you're more likely to be red-white.
I see.
And even if you don't want to be red-white, I think you might want to be black-white. I think black-red is the least likely of your color combinations.
Yeah. So I think that's where I think I was behind mentally on that.
Yeah.
Like I think I still was looking down in the lower left part of my screen and seeing, Reaper's Talisman really, an overperformer. And then maybe I can make Vorpal Sword work, but you need to be pretty heavy in black to make Vorpal Sword a thing. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to be playing these two equipment, then Armory Veteran gets bumped up a bit for two reasons. One, it only costs 2 mana, and getting something going with Reaper's Talisman early is great. And two, it actually gets a bump from having an equipment put onto it too. So that's why I bumped it above. Normally, I would prefer the Barbarian as my number one, but that's why I did that. But I think you're right for what it's worth.
And Armory Veteran is particularly good at those two equipments. Giving it Menace and Death Touch is obviously strong. But here, I would take the Plundering Barbarian, though. Going into this pack, at this point, I think you want to play white because Grandmaster of Flowers is your best card. And Steadfast Paladin is probably your like third or fourth best card overall. Like it's worse than Reaper's Talisman and Burning Hands, but I think it's better than the rest.
Yeah.
So I would like to be white. And we're now getting into like the pick 3, pack 2 or so, pick 4, pack 2, where that's at the point where I think you just need to pick 2 of the 3 colors. And I think this is where the draft really suffers. So you take Armory Veteran. And
we should mention the cards that I have that like I move my blue cards out, but the cards I have in front of me at this point, as this is kind of where I'm at, are 3 black cards, 4 red cards, 3 white cards. I mean, I am split right down the middle, and that is not where you want to be.
No, it's not where you want to be, but given the way you got here, it kind of makes sense. Like it's a team draft and the packs were weak. So this I don't think you messed up to get into that position.
Yeah.
I think that opening Grandmaster really kind of
definitely the wrong pick though. Cause the other thing is if I take Plundering Barbarian here, I can look to cut Hired Hexblade and Vorpal Sword and splash for Reaper's Talisman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And the Barbarian helps there. So, so you take the Armory Veteran, which doesn't end up working out for those reasons. And then in that pack, if I had seen a good black card or a good red card, I would have snapped it off. Obviously, I would take a good white card over all of them, but that just wasn't available. So then you get past a pack that's pretty weak. It's got Keen-Eyed Sentry, Half Elf Monk, Gloomstalker, Zombie Ogre, Treasure Chest. I actually like the Half Elf Monk pick that you make there. I think that white's the color you want to be, and Half Elf Monk is a perfectly serviceable card. None of these cards are exciting, and you're not passing anything good. The best card in the pack is probably Underdark Basilisk, not something I'm interested in hate drafting at this time.
Right.
So you took another white card, and now you're edging towards red-white, and here there's Arborea Pegasus and Delver's Torch, Jaded Sellsword, Hired Hexblade. Arborea Pegasus, clearly the best card, and again, white is the color I think you want to reinforce the most. So you take the Pegasus, and I'm still thinking about that late Pegasus pack 1 where it was a good sign that white, if not like open, at least you were getting decent white cards a little later. So I thought pack 3 would be decent for white. And then here we've got Hive of the Eye Tyrant and Dungeon Crawler as our options in black. No red cards or white cards in the pack at all.
Yeah. This is by the way, just like my mental state at this point was just like, crap, this is hard. Like, yes. I'm just like I was saying to my chat at the time, like, hey, this, sometimes team draft goes like this where everybody's kind of cutting everything and it feels that way, but also this, it wasn't just that. It was just the way that the packs broke. But I mean, I opened up this pack after finally kind of saying, okay, I'm going to be red, white. And then there's no red, no white. Like, okay, great.
And again, this is how team drafts go. So like, I want to be clear that like getting into that position in pack 1 was just kind of inevitable based on your packs. There really wasn't a way to not do that. But this is the pack where I think you needed to commit harder to whichever pair of colors you wanted. And then we had some card evaluation like differences. But here I would just take Hive of the Eye Tyrant. I still think there's a chance you play black, plus Hive is just a really good card. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to pass it in a team draft. I think Spiked Pit Trap is pretty bad, but whatever. Like that.
Yeah.
That's not gonna.
I took the Spiked Pit Trap, which I hate. I don't like that card at all. But I was just thinking at this point, I need to I'm already short on playables. Remember, in front of us right now, I've got 4, 7, 10, 14 cards that I'm looking at, but 3 of them are black currently, right? So make it 11. We're coming up on halfway through the second booster pack, and I've got like 5 or 6 other cards in my sideboard. I'm starting to think like, crap, am I going to get to 23 here? Especially with the way these packs are going. Yeah.
And then there's like basically a blank pack. And then we have a pack with Valor Singer and Planar Ally. I think you're supposed to take Valor Singer, especially since you picked up 2 Goblin Javeliniers, which at the moment are looking pretty weak in your deck, but Valor Singer can help those a little bit. I would not take the Delver's Torch here. But
wait, what was the next pick?
There was basically a blank pack in the middle where you took a Javelinier really quickly out of a pack with nothing in it.
Yeah, that was the only red card, right?
Yeah. And then pack 2, pick 8, you take Valor Singer over Planar Ally.
Okay.
And that's fine. That's what I would do too. And I think at this point you are definitely committed to red white. There's just basically no chance you can switch off that. And you pick up you hear something on watch, which sadly looks like it's going to be decent in the deck, even though red white wants to be aggressive. You're just kind of a mid-range deck here, which is pretty bad given you have 2 Goblin Javeliniers in the deck, because that's not really what you want either.
Yeah, pretty bad.
And then you pick up like a treasure chest. So basically the last couple cards don't do much. We'll skip to pack 3, pick 1. And again, it's a team draft. Plus, even in a normal draft, I think this would be the pick. You open Orcus, Prince of Undeath, the red-black rare that sweeps the board or brings things back. And you were actually, there's 2 Orcuses open, and both you and Alex splashed it, which like him in red-green, you in red-white, which I like that, though. If I would have liked it a lot more if we had 2 plundering barbarians.
Oh my god, those plundering barbarians are just killing me right now.
I think I ended up with a bunch of those. So, and I actually splashed plate armor off them because they are good at facilitating that. So you take Orcus because there's really no argument for doing otherwise. Like, it's not only the best card in the pack that you can play, it's also a team draft. You really can't pass Orcus. And not get yelled at by your teammates.
Right, exactly.
So Orcus is a solid pick, passing like a Hunter's Mark, some mediocre red and black cards that like you see a pair of goblins, cotton skeletons, whatever. So at this point, you've got Orcus, Reaper's Talisman, tons of red and white cards. You get past a pack with Reaper's Talisman, Grim Bounty, and Dragon's Fire. You got to just take Dragon's Fire here. As good as those 2 black cards are, there's 2 reasons to take Dragon's Fire. One is you want to minimize splashes, and Dragon's Fire is in your main color. The other is by taking Dragon's Fire, you pass 2 good black cards, and one of those did get to BK. Like he got one of those 2 black cards because the Corticals took Reaper's Talisman and then passed BK a Grim Bounty, which worked out pretty well for your team.
And then I also will note that there's an unexpected windfall in this pack that is starting to look like the card I want to wheel because there's nothing else outside of you hear something on watch, but also I've now got 2 splashes and not treasure makers.
And then here you've got another mediocre pack for you, which is like a Cloister Gargoyle with no adventuring and Rally Maneuver, which is clearly the pick here because you've got a bunch of creatures. Rally Maneuver can do a little bit of work here. And so this is pack 3. So we'll just do the last 3 picks of new packs, basically. And amazing. So I'm watching this as a VOD on your Twitch channel, and Twitch just gave me an ad, so I have to wait till the ad clears. Like, which is Twitch telling on me that I'm not subscribed to Marshall.
Yeah. Yeah, you should pay.
But the point at which you're in the draft, again, I challenge any viewer who looks at your like result and thinks like, wow, Marshall really beefed it, to go through this draft and kind of think, what would you do differently? Because I'm looking at this. This is now the second time I've watched this draft. I don't see a way for you to just be like, oh yeah, I cruised to a nice black-white deck, or I just drafted a sick black-red deck. Your deck was destined to be Mardu junk after pack 1. The only other out maybe would be to take some random blue cards, but that would not have worked out well. In fact, there was one blue drafter. It was Ben, Mr. Metronome, and his deck wasn't good. Like,
no, his deck was not good.
It's just blue is not good. So you end up taking the rally maneuver and get past a pack that has like Priest of Ancient Lore and Evolving Wilds, and I can't fault you for taking Priest here. As much as I'd want Evolving Wilds to splash Orcus, Priest is also actually good for like deck smoothing a little bit, and you need playables. So easy Priest of Ancient Lore here. And at this point, I'd be feeling a little better about things. Getting a fourth pick Priest in a team draft is a good sign.
Yeah. So,
but you're at a point where you have 21 playables, and I want to cut 5 of them. So you really need to pick up cards.
Right.
And then here we've got Dragon's Disciple plus 2 Mace, Potion of Healing. Oh, this is the really weird pack. Literally 6 blue cards.
Yes.
Just complete garbage. So you take the plus 2 Mace, which ended up being really bad in your deck, but also like not a card we could easily cut. That's just kind of the nature of it.
Especially if I'm going to run these 2 Goblin Javelineers, or I just need something to make those relevant, you know.
But look at this pack. Ben got to take probably 3 blue cards out of this pack. No one else competed, and they were just not good.
Yeah.
Pick 6 was a gift. You got a Monk of the Open Hand, which not only is just a good card, I've been really impressed with it. You also have Grandmaster of Flowers.
Yeah.
So a Windmill Slam, and this had to make you feel a lot more optimistic about your chances.
I felt like this was the good thing that happened to me this draft, right? Like,
yes.
You know, just nothing. Like, it really felt like a slog. And it's really interesting going back and watching it too, because so the things that stand out to me are, one, I wouldn't have changed direction in a significant way. These packs were really hard. Like, I just kept getting, you know, the first pack was, you know, never really a direction to find. And then the second pack was just very weak. You know, I kept getting packs with like a red card, like the 1/3 or whatever. And then like 4 blue cards and a couple of other colors. And there was very few just like, oh, I'll just pick this up for my deck. That's fine. You know, that just wasn't happening. It felt like I was knocking my head against a wall more. And then the other thing is, I paid too much attention, not in a color way, to those first couple of equipment that I got, but to how I was drafting my deck. Like, that Plundering Barbarian pick in retrospect was really clearly a Plundering Barbarian. And I should have just, I actually ended up getting there where I said, okay, I'm just going to splash for the Reaper's Talisman, but I should have recognized that sooner and said Vorpal Sword and a 2/2 are not pulling me into black. I can let go of this, you know, and just play this one really good equipment in my aggro deck or whatever. And if I would have thought of that, then Plundering Barbarian would have been an easy pick. And I think that, you know, in retrospect, it was very clearly the pick over what I actually took, which is tough.
I think you basically what I get out of looking at that draft and kind of like how things went is, I think this is like kind of the thing that I would, the first takeaway is you had a tough seat. You weren't getting out of that with an easy draft or an obvious direction. But B, I think that the combination, or I guess B and C, the combination of, I think a couple times just taking the worst card out of a couple colors, like for example, you know, taking the Armory Veteran over to Plundering Sellsword, or the Plundering Barbarian. Or, you know, like, and a couple other, I don't remember every single pick, but there's a couple times when it looked like I thought you wanted a different of the options within the same color. And then C, not committing a little harder to red, white or white, black. I don't think you could have been black, red. So, yeah,
I don't think that was going to happen. And I felt like once I got the Master of Flowers is when I started taking white cards like a lot more consistently and kind of settled in, but that was pretty late in the draft. I just don't know. Like, I'd love it if people could watch it and say, here's the deciding point. To me, it was the Master of Flowers or whatever it's called, but Grandmaster of Flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before that, I still struggle even watching back to find the point at which it's like, this is where you needed to commit. Instead, I just wish I would have picked better cards, in the colors that I chose, which is weird. It's not normally a weakness for me, but I definitely missed on there a couple of times. I think I just overcommitted to the equipment idea in black, and that was wrong.
Basically, the way I would look at it is some drafts you have a wide margin for error. And so, right, like no matter what you do, you couldn't screw it up. Like you drafted black red, and even if you like missed a pick or two or took the worst card a pick or two, like you'd still end up with a good deck. And in some drafts, like even if drafted perfectly, even though not everyone would agree on that, but even if drafted like as best as you could, you still would end up with like a pretty marginal deck. Like those are the drafts where you get really punished for doing any missing and doing stuff like not taking the Arborea Pegasus or passing on the 2 Plundering Barbarians. Like, at the end of the draft, if you got to take out your 4 worst cards, you're like 2 Javeliers, a Mace +2, and whatever the next worst card is, Armory Veteran maybe, and put in like Arborea Pegasus, 2 Plundering Barbarians, and like 1 other card, I think that your deck would have been a pretty solid amount better. That would have been an upgrade. And maybe that's the best you can do in that spot. Not every draft is going to be good or clean. But you basically rolled low on your draft to begin with, but then you made a couple mistakes in a spot where you got really punished for it. You just didn't have the margin to do that. Whereas like, again, I'm not trying to make you feel better by talking about my draft, but I did not have a hard draft. You can go back and watch it. I took the best black or red card every single pack.
Right.
There wasn't a decision point where I'm like, ooh, which colors am I going to be? I'm like, oh, I opened a Meteor Swarm.
Right. It's like, I'll take that one. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you just have to look at how the draft played out. And that's what we did. And see like, hey, realistically, what could I have done differently? And I don't think the answer is, that much. Like I just don't see it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think this is giving people a chance to sort of listen in on this type of discussion, I think is really important because, so we should say, so I went 0-3. I got pretty well smashed too. At least 2 of the matches went to 3 games, and the games I won were pretty lopsided in my favor, as you might imagine with the red-white aggro deck. But, it's really interesting to note because I think that one of the skills that you have to have as somebody who's trying to improve at Magic, and you should always be trying to improve, is you need to be able to objectively look at why you lost, right? And that's really difficult because sometimes you look at it and it's really easy to make an excuse and say, well, I flooded out and that's my excuse. It's like, well, maybe your curve wasn't very good, or maybe you included too many lands, or maybe you could have played differently and you're using I flooded out as the excuse, even though you probably could have won the game. But you also might have flooded out. And it is really important to recognize the reason why you lost if you feel you can be objective enough to, not lie to yourself, basically. And I think this gets interesting in this case because on one of the games I flooded out. That was it. There was nothing to be played. And I lost the game as a result. But I have to really look because there was also a couple of, at least one game where I didn't find enough mana. And, 2 Plundering Barbarians, right? Like sometimes you get stuck on 3 and you fall behind, which is by the way, exactly what happened. And if I replace, say, one of the 1/1 goblins and the Armory Veteran with Plundering Barbarians in that position, that's a game changer. That is a completely different game that plays out. Just getting 1 mana for 1 turn can completely change how the game plays. And that's on me. Right? Like I didn't take those Plundering Barbarians that I had a chance to take 2 of and chose other cards in what would be my colors over them. So, these are the times where I don't get to say, well, I got mana screwed and that's why I lost. It is how it played out in the table. But, if I would have had better cards that helped with your mana, that could have been better. Also, maybe I would have won the other games with Plundering Barbarian for blowing up an artifact. I don't remember, but that kind of thing too. So, this is a skill in and of itself. And I think the 2 things to take away from a conversation like this is if you're in my seat and you did poorly, I'll actually upgrade it to 3 things. The first one is you have to just sort of let that sit and understand. Like, I'm frustrated about it. I'm not happy that I went 0-3. I hate losing. I really hate losing to Lords of Limited guys on my stream. Like, it is pure misery, right? And we won the whole thing because Luis crushed it and because BK crushed it, but not because of me. And that matters to me, right? Like, these are independent acts. Like, I should have been able to, I was hoping to, I knew my deck wasn't great. I knew my seat was tough, and it was. And so I was telling my chat, if I win one game or one match, that's probably acceptable for this. If I can win 2, I'll be thrilled, was kind of where I was at. But winning 0 is tough. I really want to be able to scrap out at least one win with kind of almost any deck I end up with. So there's that. Let it settle. Be okay with yourself with it. The next thing is you have to be willing to listen to other people, right? Like, Luis is a much better Magic player than I am. And so when he says this stuff, I'm going to take it to heart and try to integrate it into the way that I see the format. So that's a skill, right? Because what's a lot easier? Being defensive and being like, no, that's not it. And look, Luis knows if I disagree for real, I'll tell him. I'll say, no, I do think you're wrong here, and here's why, right? And we can flesh it out about that. But he's not wrong here, right? It's obvious in retrospect when he brings these points up, and it's like, okay, I need to, I have to try to figure out what actually happened there. And then, of course, the last thing is to be able to absorb it enough to change your actions in the future. So that's just another skill that you have to work on, where when you sit down, you're remembering these things and integrating them. I'm just very lucky because I have Luis to guide me through this. Not everybody does. And also I get to do it in front of all of you. Yay.
But I mean, that's like, that is what you need to do to get better. Like, it is necessary to go through this process. And part of what I think, is your strong suit here is you're not caught up in making excuses for this, because at the end of the day, like, you could have given yourself a better chance and you didn't.
Exactly. And that's the part to focus on, right?
Right.
You're always going to lose. You're always going to lose some games to Mana Screw. You're always going to have variance happen. You're going to have tough seats like this. But did I maximize in my seat? And the answer is no. I didn't in this case. I am happy enough with my performance as far as navigating when and how. Like, the colors thing is perplexing. Like, that, this was a really tough seat for that. And I'm glad that I ended up in a color pair that was viable for my seat. But my picks within that color pair, I am not happy with, and they matter a lot. So there you go. But we won, so taste it.
I mean, I believe if I was in your seat, if we switched seats, I think that you would have had very close to the same expectation I did in terms of like what you would have done with my seat. Like, I don't think your deck would have ended up meaningfully different. Maybe you don't like Plundering Barbarian. You wouldn't have had as many of those.
Oh no, I love Plundering Barbarian.
Yeah.
I take it really high in regular draft. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if I was in your seat, my deck would also be bad. Like, that was not a seat that you can emerge with a good deck. And so that sometimes that happens, but the important part isn't I got unlucky and I lost. It's I was dealt a bad hand, but I could have done better. And that's what this show's all about. It's not focusing on like it's okay to like acknowledge it, right? It's okay to say like, hey, I couldn't have escaped that seat with a 3-0. I just don't think that was in the cards. But that doesn't get you off the hook for, hey, I could have drafted better. I could have made better decisions.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because, like, let's compare our seats, right? My mistakes were more magnified. Like, it's actually more important that I hit the landing on those picks that I missed on, because I had such little wiggle room, right?
Well, and that's when the margin of error comes in, right? Mm-hmm. Where you end up in a spot where you had no margin for error. So your mistakes cost you more. I think I could have screwed up more and still ended up with a good deck.
Yeah.
And that's also not to say if we sat here and looked at my draft that I'd make every pick the same either. Like,
sure.
That there is also always a benefit to hindsight and being able to take as much time as you want and what have you. But I thought this was a good draft to look over. You don't usually get drafts this interesting. No, and I think
for sure.
If we looked at every draft on the table, yours might have been the most interesting to look at overall. So
definitely. I was talking to that with my chat too. I was just like, wow, this seat is just unreal, right? Because it just, like, every time I felt like I started to get into a lane, I'd get a pack with like nothing in the colors. Right. Have to keep spreading out. Well, that was great. Hopefully next time we can do a review on my genius drafting into a clean 3-0 against the Lords, and which is a little less interesting as far as learning potential goes, but I wouldn't mind doing it. Luis, let's go over some of our tips, tricks, combos, interactions, rules stuff, little stuff that pops up in the format that doesn't pop up very often, but when it does, it's either powerful or interesting. And then we'll call the show after that. A few things. We'll just start banging through these. If you have anything to add, Luis, to any of it, just jump in there. You can pick up a few of these too. Cloister Gargoyle doesn't have Defender, so you can equip it and attack with it. Keep that in mind. It doesn't need to. A lot of these Gargoyle type effects traditionally are Defender cards that lose Defender and gain flying when they are freed from their stone shackles. But this Cloister Gargoyle is not. It can actually just attack on its own. One thing that actually comes up somewhat frequently is Minimus Containment. So the first thing is to always remember that it hits non-land permanents. A lot of times I think people forget that, but you can nab planeswalkers with it, equipment with it, any of that type of stuff. But one weird interaction is you can actually Minimus Containment your opponent's Minimus Containment, which then will free up whatever was underneath it back on your side again.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So that happens sometimes. It's kind of weird. Potion of Healing. Pretty bad, right? Not really where we want to be in the format, but I did find a really great use for it. The awesome build around Teleportation Circle that blinks a creature on your end step. It also happens to blink artifacts, and Potion of Healing is an artifact. And when it ETBs, you draw the card. The life gain happens when you sack it. So you get the good stuff when it ETBs. So don't forget that, that is a target, a viable target. And I actually drafted a full-on Teleportation Circle deck, and I put Potion of Healing in it, and it was fantastic. Just, because you just need to let the dust settle with one thing to blink with it, and you're probably good to go. And if Potion of Healing is that thing, then great. And all of a sudden you're drawing 2 cards a turn, and you can kind of run away with it.
Yeah, Potion of Healing, it's not a good card, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a card that's not that far from being justifiable if you have any amount of combos in your deck. It's just like you'd put it in your life gain deck, and right. It's totally fine.
Yeah. So there you go. But I will say that Teleportation Circle has to be the best use for it because you're just going off. One kind of interesting thing, a card I don't play very often, but maybe has a few more synergies in the format is Spare Dagger. Mm-hmm. And because Spare Dagger actually does the damage, not from the dagger itself, but from the creature that's holding the dagger. And of course, the obvious thing that should come to mind then is Death Touch, right? If you can either give your creature Death Touch, or if it has it already and you can Spare Dagger or something, you can use it to just outright kill that thing. So that's kind of cool. Just a kind of a classic combo at this point. Sylvan Shepherd plus Lurking Roper. They're just BFFs. Basically gives the Roper vigilance of sorts as it gains life after the attack. So you can just sort of keep slamming with those 2 creatures if you can keep the Shepherd rolling. This one's actually pretty cool. Reaper's Talisman plus Goblin Javelineer is kind of neat. The Javelineer pings the blocker. Anytime it gets blocked, it pings it, and the Talisman gives it Death Touch when it attacks. So
it's not like Reaper's Talisman needs a lot of help, but but I actually want to sing the praises of Goblin Javelineer here as well. Mm-hmm. It's not that the Javelineer is excellent, and we just saw you draft the deck with 2 of them that didn't fit that great.
Hate it every minute.
But it's also, like Potion of Healing, not that far from being good enough, because it kind of acts as a 2-1 in combat. So the whole trick is, do you ever put them in a position where they have to block it or want to block it? Right. Mm-hmm. And equipment does that. And Reaper's Talisman, of course, is just that is a Mondo combo. Very hard to beat that combination of 2 cards. But in any red-white equipment deck that has some power boosting equipment, I found it to be fine. You put you can have Boots of Speed on it, makes it a 2-1, which they can't just ignore that forever. And then it fights as a 3-1. So Javelineer, I don't think is as bad as people make it out to be, but it also does need a little bit of work to actually do some good stuff.
Speaking of the Reaper's Talisman, and other equipment. So there's some interesting stuff. As we've seen Price of Loyalty become, very often played card in the format, right? It has the obvious synergies with the sack that we've talked about a lot. That one didn't make the list because it's so ubiquitous, but we see that card just cast a lot to win a game as well, because the format plays so quickly. It's interesting because if, for example, you steal a creature that has Delver's Torch on it and attack, the the owner of the Delver's Torch actually gets to go through their dungeon. You don't, which is kind of weird.
The same is true of Reaper's Talisman. It ends up canceling out, but they lose 2 and then they gain 2. So it actually, you're not really getting value out of that.
Yeah. So it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing with Price of Loyalty that's kind of weird is Mind Flayer. That's the 3/3 that steals a creature. Mind Flayer is different than what we're used to, where its clause is if it leaves play, then the creature gets to come back. That's not actually how Mind Flayer works. And it says gain control of target creature for as long as you control Mind Flayer. So if you steal their Mind Flayer with Price of Loyalty, you'll actually get your creature back, and it won't go back on their side even after the effect from Price of Loyalty is over. Which is different. You know, that's kind of a weird thing to have happen. I actually had a scenario on my stream, Luis, where it wasn't Price of Loyalty, but my opponent played Volo and then played Mind Flayer. So they got to double Mind Flayer, and I'm like, all right, well, GG.
Some nice rares there.
Right. And so, but I actually had a Mind Flayer myself, and I was able to steal their Mind Flayer and then get back my other creature as well. And I swung the tables back in my direction because of that interaction, and I won the game. I mean, I wouldn't have put myself at a very high chance of winning a game after that insane combo, but that's something to keep in mind. So if you can even just get it back on your side, you'll get it back. Speaking of Reaper's Talisman, again, Tiger Tribe Hunter plus Reaper's Talisman works. The Hunter is actually what does the damage. So if you fling a 1/1 creature, even after the Talisman triggers resolve, and you got to make sure you stack them right so that the Hunter has Death Touch when you do this, then you can use it as kind of a machine gun.
Though I will say it's pretty difficult to make that work because it has to attack alone to get the Talisman. And
so it has to be a 6/6. Oh yeah, you're right. Good point.
That one I think is like, yes, this works, but not maybe as easily as you want.
That got really, really niche for us there. Cuneo said Wizard Spellbook plus Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Talia, what is it?
Tasha's Hideous Laughter. That I mean, the first Tasha's Hideous Laughter does nothing probably, or very little, which is why we don't like it. The second one always kills them.
Yeah.
So that is it's a too rare combo, but it is a funny one.
It is a good one. I like it, Cuneo. That's nice. Good to see what you've been focusing on in the format. This is a really weird one that I actually didn't know about. So I asked for people on Twitter to tell me their combos, and a bunch of these are from them. This one is with Flame Skull, the mythic rare. If you steal it and sacrifice it, as again we've seen happen so often in the format, it says when it dies, exile it. If you do, exile the top card of your library until in turn you may play one of those cards, which means that you can actually, as the stealer, sack it and then just cast it and have it yourself.
The stealer has become the stealee.
Isn't that something weird? And you can do it. You can just sort of keep doing that. It's an interesting thing because normally these effects can't happen like that because these cards go back into your library on some level, and you're not allowed to shuffle other people's cards into your library. But if it's exile, you can do it. You can exile their stuff.
That definitely plays. A lot of these involve Price of Loyalty, of course.
Yes, indeed. One combo that can win a game is if you have Rust Monster plus Thieves Tools, you can attack, get the unblockable, and then after it's not blocked, you can sacrifice the tools and any other artifacts you have to maybe get a lethal hit in. This is kind of a cute combo. I actually don't remember seeing this come up, but Feign Death on a Manticore. So you block with Manticore, then Feign Death, and then it comes back, and then the trigger will kill basically anything, whatever it blocked. You could even have 5 mana and have all of that hidden information, which is kind of cool too.
Feign Death also is a card that goes way up in value the more ETB effects you have. It goes from marginal playable to actively good. Yes. One of your top 10 cards if you have a ton of ETB effects. And I have run into that where it's Feign Death's actually doing some real good work here.
Yeah, so that's a nice one too. This one's insane. So Asmodius, right? We hate this card. But you can pay triple black to draw 7 cards with it, but then it has all these clauses that make it so that you either die to it or you never get the cards. But if you can sack it with that draw 7 on the stack, you'll get the 7 cards, which is kind of cool. And I saw MTG Nerd Girl, she was streaming. She's a huge drafter, and she did that, but she stole her opponent's Asmodius and then draw 7 on the stack and then sacked it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was insane, right?
That works out very nicely.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Haven't seen this one pulled off. Maybe a best of 3 thing, but Pegasus plus Plummet.
Yeah, you can give your opponent stuff flying, I guess. I haven't run into that either.
Yeah. Minimus containment on Mind Flayer. This is a classic one as well, where you would assume, well, if I get rid of the Mind Flayer, I get my creature back. But Minimus containment doesn't actually do that. They still technically control it, so you won't get your creature back. It'll just take out the 3/3. So keep that in mind. Best combo in the format, Delina plus Pixie Guide. You talked about that a number of episodes ago, right?
Yeah, Splinter Twin.
Yeah, so that's Splinter Twin. So that's sweet. Another cute one is Goblin Javelinier plus Manticore. You can, let a huge creature block your Goblin Javelinier, and then after the damage from the ping resolves, cast Manticore and kill it, and you get to keep your Goblin. So that's nice. This is one I hadn't heard of. I had to reread it, but Green Dragon, now you need a lot of mana, but Green Dragon plus Magic Missile. Green Dragon, actually, I thought it was combat. I thought it was pseudo, just, your guys have death touch, but it's really not. It's whenever a creature on the other side is dealt damage, you destroy it. So you can use Magic Missile to kill 3 creatures if you cast a Green Dragon that turn.
Yeah, there's 2 big problems with this. One is it costs 9 mana, and the other is you have to put Green Dragon in your deck. But it is a cool combo if you do get both, kind of at the same time.
Yeah, this one was really weird. You were streaming and I was playing, and we both had the same combo in our deck, which was Teleportation Circle. Plus, we both had multiple Earth Cult Elementals, and then randomly we were both splashing for plate armor or something in the same decks, even though they weren't red-white, but anyway, the Teleportation Circle plus Earth Cult Elemental equals Smokestack.
Yeah, I mean, you keep blinking the Earth Cult Elemental, and then some of the time you get to you get to make them sack a permanent. Sometimes you have to sack a permanent as well, but once you get that going, it's pretty good. I will say Teleportation Circle is also just overperformed for me. It's a legit just, I'll take this card first pick and figure out ways to use it.
Same. I've been, what I did is I got a Post-it note, and as I'm playing, if I think of things for the Sunset Show, I'll just write them down. Cause I always forget stuff when we're doing the thing. And I have build around Teleportation Circle. Lock it in. Spoiler alert. That's going to win the best build around in the set. What are these last few you had here?
So Price of Loyalty shows up a few more times with some rares. Minsk, the ranger that makes a hamster, boo.
Yeah.
His ability is X, make one of your creatures into an XX. If you steal their creature, you can pay X equals 0.
Oh, to make it that's 0, sweet. 0. I like that.
And then with a mythic, you have Acerak, the Lich that lets you venture. Well, Acerak already wants you to go into the Tomb of Annihilation, and because the tomb has like oubliette or the veils of I don't remember the veils of fear or something, it's got a couple rooms where you can sack a creature. So if you Price of Loyalty then play Acerak, you can sack their creature to your dungeon room and end up getting some pretty good value out of that.
Oh, that's sweet. What else?
Another combo that I've run into a bunch actually is Dueling Rapier plus Horde Robber. And the reason I think this is an actual combo is Horde Robber is a 2-mana 1/3 that they want to block, and giving it +2/+0 is the perfect stat boost to make it win early fights.
Yes.
So you will end up in a spot where you play this on turn 2 and they'll have a 2/2. And not only do they want to block it, it's the kind of block that like doesn't punish them on its face. So they're much more likely to do it. And I've actually found combining these two kind of mid-range commons together can get you some pretty good value.
What's the keyword we need? Like, what's the opposite of unblockable?
Provoke is kind of one.
Yeah, because it's just like, I don't think Horde Robber's ever not been blocked in its entire existence. One other combo that I got sent a couple of times by a buddy of mine, Matt, as well, is Grasslax, which is the 1/blue 3/2. And whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. And then if any of your creatures hit, you draw a card. With cards like Scion of Stygia, because if they block it, you can just bounce it and then keep tapping down the thing over and over again, so that they kind of don't really have any way out. And then Deathsea actually replied on my Twitter thing and said that the best combo in the format, going first.
Yeah, I think going first, playing a 2-drop, these are good skills in this particular environment.
Yeah, it's funny because we know that R&D really wanted die rolling to matter in this set. I'm not sure that's exactly what they had in mind, but they definitely got there. All right, let's call it a show, Luis. That was a fun one. Thanks for going over my stuff. Next time, it'll be a clean sweep like we had a couple ago. Where nobody loses. But I'm looking forward to it. Another chance to get in the ring with the guys. If you want to find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis's LSV, pretty much everywhere. If you want to check out what we've got going on with LR, you can head over to lrcast.com, and right on the front, I just put a bunch of links to kind of all of our stuff. Basically anything LR related or Luis or I related, you're going to find on there, our streams and social media and all that kind of stuff right on the front. And while you're there, well, we've got every episode of the show ever. You can go back and listen to the archives. You can download the shows if you want. The show's available. Well, we try to put it basically everywhere we can so that you can get your hands on it in whatever way works best for you. So, you'll find it on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app. We're on Spotify. We're on Pandora. We're on Google, Apple, everywhere. Everywhere we can put the show to make it easy for you. Again, you can even just download the MP3 version if that's the easiest for you, or if you want to, keep track of it that way. And again, you can find all that on lrcast.com. I want to thank our sponsor channel, Fireball. Make sure you check them out for anything and everything you need magic related. If you pick up anything over there, use the affiliate code LR. We do appreciate it. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see you next week.
So I recently saw the Dune trailer, and it's hard to express how excited I am for it, because Dune, by Frank Herbert, it's one of those, I think, like foundational sci-fi books. You know how like Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien kind of defined modern fantasy? Like there's the progenitor of that, like his version of dwarves and elves and orcs. Like that's what almost everything is based off of.
A lot of magic.
Definitely. And of course I understand that like previous fables and stuff like that were a big part of, where he was coming from. And he doesn't deserve all the credit, but similar to that, like Dune, the whole aesthetic of Dune, the like sand people, the sandworms, spice, like all of that. Like, I think it's hard to know how much, that influenced a lot of modern fiction and the way we look at things, and the fact that there's going to be a movie coming out, and I saw the trailer, and the trailer looked very good, has me really excited. So I've got a couple things. One, if you haven't read Dune, it's not that long. Definitely check it out. It's so good. Like, it's a shame that there aren't any sequels to it, or anything like that, because it's that good. But by itself, it stands by itself and is just
there's
an
no
incredible
sequels?
piece of work. No, not a single one. It's unfortunate. So
wow. I thought that would be one of those Dune 7. Yeah, wow, I'm surprised by that, because that's just a world just begging to be built on, right?
You would think that like such an evocative world and such a strong story would have spawned a lot of good sequels, but no such things exist. But they've done the movie a few times. It's a hard movie to make, but this trailer for the last one just looks incredible. So I would definitely check it out. And the other thing, which I mentioned on stream the other day, and I noticed a bunch of people following up on that, was I've actually reviewed a lot of books on Goodreads. You can you can search for my Goodreads. I'll link it in the show notes. I'll have to find it. But I've kind of reviewed in just ratings wise. I don't think I wrote anything about any of the books, but these are a lot of the books I've read and a lot of the books I've enjoyed. So if you want more recommendations on mostly sci-fi and fantasy books, but a couple, a decent amount of nonfiction as well. I had a good time. I just kind of got motivated to do that one night and just kind of did it for a while. So just definitely check out Dune. And if you want to get a look at the books I tend to read, Goodreads is your place.